In Indiana will be receiving a brand new metal roof from Alliance Exteriors for free. Make sure to follow Alliance Exteriors on Facebook to see photo updates with the winners, their new roof install, and more. Plus, follow Alliance Exteriors on Facebook to stay in the loop for more contests like this. Coming soon. Alliance Exteriors would like to thank everyone who entered our new roof and windows giveaway, along with the supporters of our company. We would be nothing without such a great community to be a part of, and we are honored to be the choice of so many local homeowners for metal and shingle roofing, siding, windows, and more. Ready to tackle your next home improvement project? Contact us today at 260-908-5465. Check out our Facebook or visit AllianceExteriorsIN.com to schedule your free, no-pressure estimate. At Alliance Exteriors, we are proud to be your partners for life.
Heavy uterine bleeding and iron deficiency anemia through the years.
Oh, I've been there. Huh? That sweater around your waist, I've been there. Heavy period.
Makes you wonder what women used to do.
The record you're using to cover your behind, I've been there. Your backward apron, I've been there.
If you've been there, you get it. Excessive menstrual bleeding for 6 months or more is known as heavy uterine bleeding, or HUB. HUB may lead to another condition called iron deficiency anemia, or IDA. Learn about iron deficiency anemia at imayhaveida.com. Brought to you by healthywomen.org and Daiichi Sankyo Inc.
Broadcasting live from the Masters Heating and Cooling Studios. This is WKJG 1380 AM, 100.9 FM, Fort Wayne, Indiana. The Fan. This is an exclusive presentation of high school sports on Fort Wayne Sports Station, 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. This is the High School Coaches Show. Here's your host, Justin Kenny.
Welcome in, everyone. The sectional opening week 10 edition of the High School Coaches Show. I'm Justin Kenny. He is John Graham, here just a touch early this morning. It's been a long week, man. It's only Thursday.
I've been here since this morning.
Yeah, so who am I to talk, right? Because John Graham's been here since this morning. But he is producing here. We're here till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Let's just restart the show. Go to a break now till 7 o'clock. Talking area high school football. Going to talk to Coach Paul Sade, Churubusco Eagles, here in just a second, and then it'll be Brice Vance, KPC Media Group. We'll talk NECC. We'll talk Northeast 8 football, heading into the matchups tomorrow night, and then Kyle Neddenriep of the Indianapolis Star will join us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk some of the big picture sectional matchups and even state matchups in terms of the favorites in each of the classes. Everybody knows about Center Grove in 6A, but we'll get the skinny on teams like Roncalli, Cathedral, for some of the fans of the teams up here that think, maybe their teams in 5A, 4A, 2A, 3A can make a run. We'll talk about some of the biggest challengers coming out of the 317 that could stand in the way, and then we'll wrap up the show. Hopefully get a hold of Coach Luke Amstutz, East Noble Knights, to close out the show. But let's get it going. We're going to talk one of the premier matchups coming up this Friday, Week 10. It's Adams Central at Churubusco tomorrow night. In Turtletown, head coach of the Churubusco Eagles is head coach Paul Sade, who joins us right now. Coach, how are you? You there, Coach?
Yes, I'm here.
There he is. How are things, buddy?
Hey, not too bad. How are you?
Good, Coach. And first time we've gotten to talk this season, so let's go game by game. No, we won't do that, actually. So, but 7-2, Coach. You guys have run off 5 straight wins after that close defeat against Eastside in Week 4. You sit at 7-2, heading into the big game tomorrow night against Adams Central. Just kind of give us a rundown on just how the regular season went and how you feel about it heading into the playoffs.
Well, obviously, there were parts of the regular season that didn't go the way we wanted them to go, and it started early in the season. We dealt with some quarantines and some injuries for the first few weeks, and that was frustrating. With the Columbia City game, our kids played hard, but we had 27 kids dressed, and that's not an excuse, but we didn't have the lineup on the field we wanted, and then the Eastside game, we just didn't play good enough to win. We were full strength. There was no excuses there. We just didn't play a good enough football game to beat them. And obviously, they've got a very special team, and those kids have been playing, together for a long time. But we felt like we had a chance to beat them, and we didn't take advantage. And since then, we've played better football. We're probably playing our best football right now, which is pretty important, this time of year, especially when you're, you got to match up against a team like Adams Central. You want to be, you want to make sure that, you're playing as good as you possibly can be. And we've still got areas of improvement, but compared to where we were 4 or 5 weeks ago, we feel like we're a better football team than we were then.
Coach, when you look at the run you guys have been on, 5 straight wins, 4 of those by shutout, and a couple of those teams you look at and say, okay, maybe expected, but West Noble, in particular Fairfield last week, going on the road against an offense that's kind of difficult to prepare for with Coach Matt Thacker, for you guys to get the shutout on the road, it seemed like a very good momentum builder heading into the postseason.
Well, there was, we had some concerns because of, and every coach deals with it in week 9. You get your sectional draw, and kids talk, and the kids are excited about sectionals, and so I thought that we did a pretty good job of focusing on beating Fairfield. They had just, had a big win and won the big school division in our conference. And, like you said, Coach Thacker's offense is difficult to defend. And the field conditions weren't great there, just like they weren't anywhere else where there was grass. And so, overall, I think it was a good way to end the regular season and hopefully set the tone for the postseason.
When you look at that offense, it's Hunter Byansky that's been holding it down. I think he's on his 9th season of eligibility and has played very well. But
we're petitioning for a 10th. So.
But some other guys have stepped up for you. Cullen Blake is very good, and a couple sophomores too. Weston Rinker, and is it Gage Hulsenbeck as well? I mean, this is by no means
Gavin. Yeah,
senior-dominated team.
No, we have a strong senior class, but just like any small school, we rely on our seniors to do a lot for us, but the expectation is that those freshmen and sophomores and juniors step up in different roles, and some of those roles are more obvious than others, and some of them are less obvious. But we feel like our supporting cast has done a really nice job of developing, and we found some guys that we feel like we can rely on. And fortunately for us, some of those guys that we're leaning heavily on won't be graduating, so that's I can't say enough about having young guys that buy in and step up and play in critical moments, because without them programs like ours would struggle to compete, because if you're just relying on seniors, it would be difficult to field a team sometimes.
Offensively, it's a mix of senior veterans and maybe some juniors that have played a while. And Riley Burhoff has done a tremendous job at quarterback once again, directing this offense. He's also a threat with his legs. And you throw in, Ethan Hilly and Marks and Nondorf, and you guys have multiple ball carriers that can make defensive pay. And with that scheme that you guys run, any one of the 4 at any time could be handling the football.
Yeah, and I think that our offense has come along. Compared to where we were at the beginning of the season, we had pretty high expectations in the preseason, and you deal with some injuries and you deal with some kids being out, and timing is everything in our offense, and continuity and communication. And so we do feel like we have some kids that we trust with the football, and we're not a one-man show or a two-man show, and I think that makes us easier to defend. Our stats are not gaudy on offense, and I think part of that is because we feel like situationally we have a few kids that we're comfortable handling the football, and we don't have to lean heavily on 1 or 2 guys. And I think our kids have owned that in a nice way of not necessarily being the star and not necessarily getting massive numbers offensively, but winning is the number one priority, and our kids are good with that.
Coach, when you look at the matchup tomorrow with Adams Central, you say, okay, Adams Central very run heavy. Brayson Yergler is a guy to keep an eye on in the passing game. He is Ryan Black's favorite target. Conversely, for you guys, very run heavy, but Nick Dondorf is that guy that can break open and make some big plays in the passing game. He's Riley Burhoff's favorite target. So in that respect, are you guys, pretty similar in terms of, having that one guy in that passing game that can really make a difference?
Well, I think every team probably has a kid that the quarterback is going to seek out first. And no matter how many times you tell him to look elsewhere, he's gonna, and that's a comfort thing. And you don't want to mess too much with that. And I won't speak for AC, but I'm assuming it's the same concept. And in years past, our tight end was our number one target, and it was just a comfortability thing with our quarterbacks. And so I don't think that. I don't necessarily think that that's any different this year. I think it's more of a comfort thing, but we feel confident that if we have to throw the ball or if we choose to throw the ball, we feel like there are several kids that can catch and can do hopefully something positive with the football.
How important is it to have that threat of a passing game to keep defenses honest?
Well, I think it depends on the defense. We are less likely to see teams that sell out completely to stop the run like we did when we were exclusively under center. And so I think it's important. I'm still relatively old school in my thinking, and I, much to Riley's chagrin, I'm just not a big fan of passing the ball all the time. But I feel like it's a necessary thing, and I feel like if you're running the ball well, I think that the passing game can be in pretty good communion with your run game if you're running the ball effectively. If we're the type of team that if we're forced to throw the ball, we'll throw the ball. We have kids that we feel confident can catch it, but it's certainly not our goal to go in and throw the ball, 20, 30 times a game.
Coach Paul Sade, Churubusco Eagles, joining us here on the High School Coaches Show. And, Coach, for simpletons like me, you look at Churubusco, okay, they're going to pack it in, they're run heavy. I look at Adams Central, they like to pack it in, they're run heavy. How similar are the offensive schemes, or is that just breaking things down a little bit too basic?
I think that what they do, and they're very traditional, in their wing T type offense, and similar to what we, had done in the past and still do a little bit of. I think we're similar in philosophy in terms of wanting to run the ball and wanting to get the ball to a lot of different people, and putting defenders in conflict in doing so. You watch them run their offense, and it's if you're an old school guy, if you're a wing T guy, a run guy, what they do year in and year out is impressive because they have great kids, and it's not by accident, and they run that offense as good as anybody could, and they are consistent with it. And I think that consistency that they have makes them very comfortable running it, and so there's no situation that they're not going to have, hey, this is our play on this down, this is our go-to. And when you have multiple guys, as they do, that can carry the football effectively, it makes them difficult to defend. And so from that regard, I think that we're similar in that, we like to spread the ball around and keep it on the ground. But certainly the styles are a little bit different than maybe they were a few years ago.
How much can your defense take from, practicing against your offense or scout team offense and apply it to what Adams Central does tomorrow night?
Well, that's a good question. They are difficult to simulate for a variety of reasons. The kids that they have are very good athletes and very disciplined athletes. It is a little bit easier to simulate some of the concepts in practice, but we don't have the ability to simulate the speed and the efficiency with which they run the football and execute their offense. So, a lot of it is mental repetition and hoping that between film and practice time that we can relate that to what's happening in the game and play at game speed, because that part of it is difficult to simulate in practice.
When you're scouting and looking at a team, game planning for a team that scores 50 points a game and averages 5, is it more, are you worried about being able to move the football against them or slow them down, or is it kind of depend based on when you wake yourself up at night, what's really scaring you to death?
I think it's C, all of the above. Hey, the bottom line is this. Adams Central, in our estimation, is the best 1A program in the state of Indiana. And you could make a case for other programs, but, they've won 20-some sectionals. And it's funny because, people say, hey, this AC team's really good, and I'm thinking, where have you guys been for the last 40 years? I've never seen an Adams Central team that I, thought, oh my gosh, these guys aren't going to be very good. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't work that way. So I think that, we have to be offensively. You look at the numbers they put up this year and the efficiency with which they won football games, and I mean that sincerely. Like, they win efficiently. They get the games over early by scoring a lot of points and giving up less than 5 per game. I mean, it's when you're winning games by an average win margin of 49 points, you can create a lot of headaches and a lot of sleepless nights for a lot of coaches on the other team. And we have to be very disciplined in our approach offensively and defensively, and then the special teams, because they score. I think pretty much every game that we've seen on tape, they've scored a special teams touchdown. So it's not as easy as just focusing on one aspect. And if our offense, for instance, if our offense is clicking, we'll be fine. Well, that's not necessarily the case, because they have the ability to do a lot of damage in all 3 phases. So we have to be as disciplined as we've been all year and as efficient as we've been all year.
It's always a hot-button issue, Coach, this time of year, is should the sectionals be seeded in some capacity? And, I think we can all agree that, say, the 2 best teams in Sectional 44 are playing tomorrow night in Turtletown. Would you have liked to have a couple weeks to lead into Adams Central, or are you a guy that says, you guys have been playing pretty good football, you may as well just play them right off the bat?
I think there's a place for seeding. I really do. I think there's arguments that I've heard in favor of it that make a lot of sense. And honestly, I don't, and this has probably sounded like a political answer, I don't think too much about it. I mean, our kids were excited to play Adams Central. I was grateful that we didn't have to go to Adams County, because that's a long bus trip.
Sure.
And it's a great place to play. But I think you could make a very valid argument for seeding the sectionals. At least 2 teams in each sectional. I think that would be a reasonable thing to do. And it's been discussed. The Coaches Association has talked about it for several years. But at the end of the day, and again, this probably sounds like a political answer, but if you want to win, you got to beat the best team at some point. So you could make a case that playing the best team early has its advantages, because you're as healthy as you're going to be in the postseason in many respects, and you don't know what's going to happen between the first game and the second game. If you win and you lose somebody, how does that set you up for down the road? So we're healthy. We're playing good football, and we knew that if we were going to have a chance in the postseason, that ultimately we were going to have to play AC, and so getting it in the first round, I guess, is as good a situation as anyone could expect. And I bet you, I think Coach Mosier would say the same thing. I think it's just one of those things that we can't control the draw. We can't control who or where we play. All we can control is how we approach the game, and so we're excited about the opportunity to play the best and see how we do.
All right, buddy. Hey, appreciate the time, man. I know you're busy on Thursday nights, so thanks for taking the time to talk to us. And good luck tomorrow night, buddy. I will track you down and get a pork burger from you pregame.
Okay, sounds great. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy.
We'll see you.
That was Coach Paul Sade, Churubusco Eagles, joining us. His team 7-2 in the regular season and will host Adams Central tomorrow night. They are 8-1 and ranked in Class 1A, number 3, only behind Indianapolis Lutheran and Monroe Central in the media poll, and number 2 in the coaches poll, only behind undefeated Indianapolis Lutheran. That's the matchup that a lot of us expect for the 1A state championship. It'll be Lutheran and Adams Central, but a lot of football to be played between now and then beginning tomorrow night at Churubusco. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. Brice Vance, KPC Media Group, will join us as he does each and every week here on the High School Coaches Show on 1380 The Fan, 100.9 FM.
Mama, what does the chicken say? Dog. Cat. Giraffe.
Giraffe, really? Giraffe.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right.
Visit NHTSA.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Possibilities are all around us. Everywhere we look, we see opportunity in unexpected places. And when we share our knowledge, vision, and connections, we turn great ideas into action in communities all around the world that we call home. Like transforming an old bus to feed hungry children, or providing life-saving equipment to those who need it most. From fighting disease to rebuilding schools, together we can make real change happen. We're Rotary. We are people of action. Get involved today at Rotary.org/action.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. I overdosed on heroin, and I lived. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. My desire to change had finally outweighed my desire to stay the same. I felt powerless for so much of my life. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. For the first time, I finally feel like I'm exactly where I should be, where I want to be.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
First Responders Children's Foundation takes care of the children and families the brave ones leave at home. Text BRAVE to 24365 to learn how you can help your first responder community today.
Now back to the High School Coaches Show on Fort Wayne Sports Station, 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back to the High School Coaches Show here on 1380 The Fan, 100.9 FM, as we effort Brice Vance of KPC Media Group, who's going to join us here in just a couple minutes. And thank you to Coach Paul Sade for joining us before the break to talk some 1A football. When we are joined by Brice Vance here in a little bit, we're going to break down this Leo East Noble game. And when we talked about seeding with Coach Sade, and he said, you know, maybe at least the top two teams in the sectional would be seeded to keep them away from each other to the final. Similar situation in sectional 19 with Leo and East Noble. Clearly the top two teams in this sectional, and probably would benefit from being ranked number one and number two, opposite sides of sectional 19. But anyway, we get them tomorrow night, 7 o'clock in Kendallville, and we're going to talk all about it right now with our friend Brice Vance from KPC Media Group. Brice, how are you?
Justin, I am superb. How are you?
Oh, I'm not superb, but we're hanging in here. Where are you headed tonight?
I am headed home to eat some fried chicken.
Oh, are you done for the night? Is Brice Vance home early on a Thursday?
I actually didn't even have to cover anything tonight, as there is nothing going on. We just got football and some semi-state soccer left and some regional volleyball. So everything is on the weekend now.
Outstanding. So the wife gets to be sick of you then during the week.
Not only just tonight.
Isn't that what marriage is all about? Just being sick of the other person. Oh, but, you know, we're not going to talk marriage here. We'll talk some football, and high school football in particular. You're off tonight, but a big one in Kendallville tomorrow night. Leo, East Noble, round 2. Let's start with round 1. We saw Leo dominate East Noble in the first half. The Knights come storming back, fall short, end up losing 40-32. Do you expect a similar type football game tomorrow in terms of 72 points scored, or do you expect a tighter one?
Oh, man, I think it's going to be just a little bit tighter. I think, you know, the winner is probably going to score, 31, 35 points. I don't think they're going to get up into the 40s, as I think both teams defensively have improved, more specifically with East Noble, just over the last couple of weeks, since that Leo game and then, after the Norwell game, they've used these last 3 games against Columbia City, New Haven, and Belmont to really find not necessarily a new identity, but, just some new guys in some new spots that are going to try and make a difference this time around against Leo, because I talked to Luke Amstutz after the Belmont game last week, and my first question was not even about the Braves, no disrespect, but it was like, was this game all in preparation, these last 3 weeks all in preparation for next week, or a potential matchup with Leo somewhere down the line? And Luke Amstutz was like, yes. I mean, everything we've done in the last 3 weeks was just all about beating Leo whenever we face them again, just because they know they had a chance the last time, even though they were down 20 points at halftime. They rallied back to tie the game up and then gave up another touchdown to Leo and had a chance at the very end to possibly tie the game up again. So I think this time it's definitely going to be a tighter game. Both these teams have been focusing on mostly this matchup for the last month or so.
When we look at East Noble the first time around, what was it that caught them off guard? I mean, was it the physicality? Was it the execution, lack thereof for East Noble? What put them in that hole in the first half?
I think it was physicality, specifically from the linebacking core and the secondary that were coming up, making those tackles on a whole slew of guys that Leo's going to run out there. They just hadn't seen it really until that type of game, and that's why I think if the Northwood game earlier in the season wouldn't have been canceled, they might have been prepared better for it because Northwood, a physical type team under Coach Andrews, and they just would have just tested the Knights a little bit more, and that's what they needed, because the Leo game was really East Noble's first test against a physical team that was going to bring it right to them every single play. And now they've had, a couple of games like that, with Leo, and then Norwell, they brought it to them really good. So I think that the physicality was the difference the first time around, and I expect the Knights to be ready right from the first snap.
Well, Brice, something you mentioned earlier in the season, too, was, the new linebackers that East Noble had, and losing the likes of Jacob Van Gorder and some other linebackers. Those were the guys that were really the keys to slowing down Leo last year in the sectional, and those guys were gone. And I think that, that was evident in round one. Do you feel that middle level of the defense now is more experienced and ready for, what will have to be an epic game by them, because, that was the difference a year ago when East Noble was able to shut Leo out in the sectional championship game?
I think they are more prepared. I think they are ready for another test against Leo. Specifically, what I saw out of the Norwell game, and it was East Noble shut Norwell out in the second half, but in the first half, Luke Graff was getting those 4 and 5, 6 chunk yards like Leo is used to doing. And then in the second half, they really were starting to fill the gaps and make tackles at the line of scrimmage or behind, and not really breaking off, letting Luke Graff break off some huge runs. And they really haven't allowed that many big plays, since the Norwell game, since really the Leo game. Even the Norwell game was filled with a lot of big plays. But that's one big thing. Because, the likes of Caden Miller, he can spring free and break off for 60 to 70 yards, and the Knights just can't let that happen again, because that can really put them in a hole early, or it can be the difference in a swing of momentum late in the game. So the Knights just need to make sure that they're making tackles not 5 or 6 yards downfield, but in between, 2 or 1 yards, or at the line of scrimmage, or even behind.
Luke Amstut's one of those unique coaches. He'll play any game, anywhere. He'll go to drastic measures to play whoever, but he'll also go to drastic measures on the field in terms of trying to take away a team's strength. So what do you see East Noble defensively doing tomorrow? Could we even see an East Noble team that comes out and stacks 9 in the box and put Munson and Zolman on islands on either side, or maybe Zolman the only deep safety? I mean, could you see just an all-out commitment to refuse that rushing attack by Leo?
I said, why not? I mean, because you do have those athletes that you mentioned that are on the outside, in Munson and Zolman. Even Dalton Stinson has been an athletic player. He was the quarterback largely for last season. Those guys can go out there and make plays. And even though Leo does have the talent out wide, the main focus is obviously first and foremost, stopping the run. If you can allow a big pass play that's 30 to to 40 yards, and that's going to be the only one of the night, I think you'll take it. If the trade-off is that you're stopping everything, within the line of scrimmage or within a couple of yards, willing to do it, a lot of the time. So I think if you just allow one big play, I think you're fine with it, as long as you can slow down the other stuff, which is the main important thing.
All right, Brice, let's look at some matchups in the NECC here real quick, and let's look at Angola going to Columbia City. Angola 2 wins. It's the fewest in a regular season for the Hornets since 1995 when they went 0-9 through the season. Does the second season give any life to Angola going on the road tomorrow night at Columbia City?
I don't think so. I think if they fall behind early, it might just be over. I think that Columbia City has the offensive talent to do so. From what I've seen with Angola, since their win over West Noble, they've really struggled to move the ball consistently, get a lot of their playmakers involved. And it's just, it's not necessarily a lack of talent. It's just sometimes the scheme just isn't there. Sometimes the talent is missing due to injury. It feels like that the season feels like it's just waiting to kind of be over for Angola. And Columbia City is definitely a team that can do that.
Another game that, maybe is flying a little bit on the radar, undefeated Tippecanoe Valley at Garrett tomorrow night. And the Railroaders, they've lost 4 of 5. They did go to Angola and get a win in Week 8. Fell at Central Noble, your Cougs, last week, 8-0 in the muck. Tippecanoe Valley in the Three Rivers Conference, not exactly known as a powerhouse, but 9-0 is 9-0. Can the Garrett Railroaders find something tomorrow night and potentially pull the upset over the Vikings?
If they do find something, it's going to come from the running game and Robert Koski. He's been, and I like the way that Garrett likes to stick to a running back and then, use them as their bell cow, use them pretty much on every down. And Robert Koski has been that guy this year, and he's been productive and had some big games. If they're going to pull off an upset over the number 7 Vikings, that's how they're going to do it. Their defense has, played well in spots. I know last week was a muddy game in Albion, but they did, limit the big plays by Central Noble. They were able to move the ball. They were just, come up short on 4th down in the red zone or have a turnover in the red zone. So they were able to move the ball against Central Noble, which has a pretty good defense. They just weren't able to put it in the end zone, and that ended up being the difference last week. So I think defensively, Garrett can slow down Tippecanoe Valley somewhat, but they're going to need to run the ball quite a bit with Robert Koski and try to use as much of that clock.
The big one tomorrow night in Turtletown, it's Adams Central and Churubusco. We talked to Coach Paul Sade earlier in the show, got his insight on the Eagles heading into tomorrow night. Busco 7-2 and have played very good football down the stretch, 4 shutouts in the last 5 games, but Adams Central has been playing like that defensively all season long outside of that game at Eastside. What should we expect at Churubusco tomorrow night?
I think this one is going to be a defensive battle. You mentioned the shutouts, both teams having quite a few on their resume so far. I think difference maker is going to be Hunter Bianski. Can he slow down the likes of Alex Curry and Blake Hirely? Can he get in the backfield? The dude has 28 tackles for loss. I believe it would probably be most in the area, if not the state of Indiana. Just the dude is an absolute beast on the defensive line and along the offensive line as well. So I think it's going to be a defensive battle. Who can come up with the most stops, I think, is going to win that game. I don't expect it to get higher than 30 points. And I know both these teams are capable of doing that, but I think both these defenses are going to shine tomorrow.
All right, buddy. Always a pleasure. Enjoy the night off. Enjoy some fried chicken, and hopefully the wife enjoys you being home.
I hope so, too.
All right, buddy. We'll catch you later.
All right, see you, Justin.
That was Brice Vance here, KPC Media Group, joining us as he does each and every week here, talking NE8, talking NECC as well. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk to Kyle Neddenriep of the Indianapolis Star when we come back. Let's look at some teams in the 317. We know all about Center Grove, ranked in the country and the best team in the state regardless of class. But who else could be lurking around the Indy area that could be difficult to get by for our area teams as the playoffs progress. We'll talk all about that with Kyle when we come back. You're listening to the High School Coaches Show, 1380 The Fan, 100.9 FM.
Get the latest knife info from the area's premier knife shop. Follow Blademans on Facebook and Instagram today and get the latest on what's happening at Blademans Knife Shop at the shops of Scott Road.
Hello, this is Mark, the owner of Blademans Knife Shop. I'd like to personally invite you out to the store to check out the area's best selection of quality knives. We carry Benchmade, Hogue, ProTech, Microtech, Emerson knives, Zero Tolerance, and many more. We have the best selection of premium knives anywhere within 100 miles of Fort Wayne. So come in and check out our great selection and have a cup of coffee on me.
Before you experience the world-class quality in store, see fresh inventory updates and limited-time specials at the Blademans Facebook page. Some inventory, unique colors, and new styles only stay in stock for a day or two. So be in the know and update your knife collection the smart way. Follow Blademans today. As always, 10% discount for police and military and on-site sharpening service. Join the community of premium blade buffs at Blademans Facebook and Instagram today.
Still looking for that one special voice that makes you fall in love with podcasts? The One is out there and free on Spotify. With over 2 million shows and today's most talked about podcasts, Spotify is the best place to find that one special show that makes you laugh, keeps you interested, and keeps you listening for more. Whatever you're into, get way more into it with a podcast. Find the one you've been listening for right now, free on Spotify.
Introducing the latest innovation in water technology. The new Nebia by Moen Quattro Showerhead offers 4 unique experiences to choose from, designed to soothe, clarify, relieve, and cleanse. An indulgent shower experience engineered to use up to 50% less water. Water designs our life. Who designs for water? Visit Moen.com to learn more.
It doesn't take a brain surgeon to know ticks suck. But what you might not know is that they don't just suck blood way out in the woods. Those creepy little bugs can be anywhere, all year long. And I do mean little. They can be smaller than the head of a pin. But big trouble comes in these small, gross packages. Even a tiny tick can make you super sick. So what's the most important tip to avoid getting bit? Well, duh, pay attention. Remember, ticks can be just about anywhere outdoors. Then, spray attention with an EPA-registered insect repellent. Wearing long socks and other protective clothing is a good idea, too. When you come back inside, shower. And always remember, check for ticks everywhere. And if you do get a tick bite, don't panic. Tell an adult. And visit ticksuck.org to learn how to remove it properly. Ticks suck, but being outdoors shouldn't. Go to ticksuck.org for more information. Ticksuck.org.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. We leave no warrior behind. Wounded Warrior Project is a non-profit organization created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war. Whether those scars are physical or mental, we're here to make sure that they heal. And whether it's helping those with post-traumatic stress disorder live a normal life again, or giving much-needed support to injured warriors in veterans' hospitals, because no one deserves our help more than the men and women who risk their lives to keep us safe. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
This Girl Scout cookie season, we Girl Scouts would like to say thank you, America.
Thank you, cookie cravers, Thin Mint enthusiasts,
peanut butter patrons,
shortbread devotees. Every time you take a bite of a Girl Scout cookie, it's good for us.
Your coconut and caramel cravings are our chance to practice goal setting.
Your midnight snacks help us learn to manage money.
Your freezers aren't just full of tasty treats.
They're packed with entrepreneurship. That's right, entrepreneurship.
You probably can't taste the business ethics or the decision-making or the people skills, but they're in there.
In every single mouthful.
Every time you eat what's in the box, we learn how to think outside of it.
So raise a glass of milk and raise our chances to reach our potential.
Eat up, America. We're counting on you. I'm Catalina.
I'm Melody.
I'm Katie.
I'm Devin.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Abby.
I'm Juliana.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Olivia.
I'm Colette.
I'm Stefania.
And we approve this message.
The Girl Scout Cookie Program. Think outside the box.
It doesn't take a brain surgeon to know ticks suck. But what you might not know is that they don't just suck blood way out in the woods. Those creepy little bugs can be anywhere, all year long. And I do mean little. They can be smaller than the head of a pin. But big trouble comes in these small, gross packages. Even a tiny tick can make you super sick. So what's the most important tip to avoid getting bit? Well, duh, pay attention. Remember, ticks can be just about anywhere outdoors. Then spray attention with an EPA-registered insect repellent. Wearing long socks and other protective clothing is a good idea too. When you come back inside, shower. And always remember, check for ticks everywhere. And if you do get a tick bite, don't panic. Tell an adult. And visit ticksuck.org to learn how to remove it properly. Ticks suck, but being outdoors shouldn't. Go to ticksuck.org for more information. Ticksuck.org.
Here's more from the High School Coaches Show on Fort Wayne Sports Station, 1380 The Fan at 100.9 FM.
Welcome in, everyone. High School Coaches Show. We are back. Efforting Cal Neddenriep here to talk some Indy area high school football. Coming up tomorrow night, it's the big one at Kendallville. Didn't have to wait long going into sectional play. It will be the Leo Lions, undefeated at 9-0, taking on East Noble, 8-1. And, of course, the
Hey, Kyle, is this you?
game that's coming up, as everyone anticipated, maybe not this early in the sectional, but most definitely probably the deciding factor. Although in that sectional, do not sleep on Northwood. Northwood's a very good team. Yeah, the record may not be there at 5-4, but most definitely a very, very good football team that East Noble was going to play earlier this season, and Northwood had to cancel. But watch out for Northwood. Panthers, pretty good. Their losses, 4 of them, have come to all teams with 2 or lower losses on the season. So Panthers lurking at the bottom half of sectional 19. So whoever wins tomorrow night in Kendallville, Leo or East Noble, by no means do they have a clear path to a sectional championship. But let's talk some 317. Let's talk some Indianapolis area football with Kyle Neddenriep of the Indianapolis Star joins us right now. Kyle, how are you?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a minute, and I guess how has the season gone down in central Indiana for you?
Pretty good. I mean, it's been, other than, a couple of not terrible weather nights, but, a little bit rough. But other than that, it was beautiful almost every Friday. So, knock on wood, it seems like every other year it's terrible. I guess this is our good year, but I think for the most part it's been, as expected as far as the best teams in the area. Center Grove and Cathedral certainly lived up to the billing, and, I think we'll be slam dunk favorites to win 6A and 5A respectively, and probably Roncalli and 4A, throw them in there too. So I think it's roughly, there's always surprises, but I think from the major storylines, it's probably gone as we thought it would go.
Yeah, I was going to start with Center Grove, and then I'm kind of looking at it and go, you don't want to put the cart before the horse, but, in terms of all of the classes, are they the biggest favorite in their respective class?
I would say probably Cathedral maybe is even bigger. But I would say just because, there are some teams out there, I think, at 6A level that, could potentially give Center Grove a game. We saw, there's been time, Ben Davis was in the game, late in the third quarter against Center Grove. They have some big play, receivers, and at the 6A level, you see that speed sometimes. So, I would say, possibly Westfield, if they can get to the championship game, possibly if they see Ben Davis again, could give them a game. I don't think anybody probably in their sectional has a chance to beat them. But, if you look beyond, Carmel didn't have a healthy quarterback, didn't have their starting quarterback when they played them, and that game was a 3-point game at halftime. It got ugly in the second half. So, there's some teams out there. Brownsburg is sort of a control the ball type of a team that, has a pretty good defense. There's a few teams out there, I think, that could, in the right scenario, give them a game. But in 5A, I just can't, other than Decatur Central, in 5A who Cathedral would see in the sectional. Yeah, I have a hard time seeing anybody that can probably run with Cathedral.
What they are with the Fighting Irish 8-1 with that lone loss to Center Grove.
Yeah, I mean they're so deep, and defensively they're really, really good. And I know it was played on a terrible field last week at Arlington, but the way I haven't seen anybody hold Center Grove down like they did for the large majority of that game. Now Center Grove got a couple scores late and tacked one on there in the final second, so it looked a little different than it probably should have been as far as the final score goes, but. It was. They're so good defensively. Their back seven, I think, is probably as good as anybody around. The linebackers are really good, and then offensively, the biggest question mark on their side was, could Danny O'Neill come in and play quarterback as a 15-year-old sophomore and lead a team of that caliber? And he's lived up to the billing. People even last year, I didn't know anything about him really, but. Everybody you talk to would say, man, you got this freshman we've got, it's going to be the real deal. And they had Nathan McCahill, who was one of the best quarterbacks in the state last year, so they didn't need him. But everything I heard was, this guy's the real deal, and he's very much lived up to that. He doesn't turn the ball over, which is, pretty rare for a sophomore. And they don't run the ball great. I think that's probably the biggest concern is they don't run the ball great. That could be a problem for them if somebody can hang in the game with them. But passing and their total defensive play is really the key to that team.
Kyle, you mentioned Roncalli in 4A, and they've been very solid, undefeated. And I wanted to talk, too, about Chittard. They started off 0-4. Now, that schedule was daunting, and since then have won 5 straight. Do you see potentially Chittard and Roncalli at some point in the sectional? And could Chittard be a threat in the second round between those two?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else today about that, another coach who's in 4A, and we were discussing that, and I think it would still be an upset, I think, but Chittard, they played them within a touchdown, and Chittard scored late in that game. It was really a 2-score game, and they scored late to make it look closer than it really was at the end, but. That's a team that, they start out 0-4, and then, you kind of disregard the record somewhat because of the teams they're playing, but, has really started to play a lot better. As the competition's not been as tough as the first 4 weeks, but, they have a quarterback named Carter St. John who, he played on a state championship team last year at the 3A level. Really, really good player, good quarterback. He's got 2 really good receivers, the TJs, Ford and Alexander, and they run the ball pretty well with Hammond. So, they always run the ball well. They're Chittard. That's kind of what they do. And then, but the thing about Roncalli is that, their offensive line, if you have a chance to watch them, they look like Wisconsin. Pretty much, they're huge across the board. They're just monstrous guys up front, and they have a quarterback, Aiden Leffler, who's been there for 4 years starting, and a lot of their guys are 4-year guys. The question they had was, defensively, they lost a lot from last year's championship team, and at times have had some trouble defensively, but, not to the extent where it's put them in any danger, of losing. They've had a couple close games. East Central played them tough last week. That game was tied in the fourth quarter. Cincinnati Elder threw the ball pretty well on them 2 weeks before that. So, they've had some tough games. I saw them against Brebeuf a few weeks ago, and they kind of just put they just control the ball. They just, so many body shots. They hit you with 4 or 5, run the ball, and then they can hit a long pass every now and then. So they're that kind of team, pretty typical around Collie, but just a massive offensive line. And that's where they've kind of, improved even from last year is up front. So not as good at the running back spot as they were last year with Hebler, but it may not matter because, that line is so good. So it'll be tough. I don't see Chittard beating them, but I expect that to be a really competitive game.
He is Kyle Neddenriep joining us from the Indianapolis Star here. Wanted to ask you about 3A. Gibson Southern seems to be the class of 3A. Brebeuf, which just losses to Roncalli and Cathedral, could be a threat there in the south part of the state here.
Yeah, Brebeuf tomorrow night plays West Lafayette, who, those two have kind of gone head-to-head several times these last few years. And, I think probably I would probably favor Brebeuf to win that game slightly. I really like they've got two receivers, Max Walters and Anthony Anee, who, they could play at the 6A level. Those guys are really good. The thing about Brebeuf that's different, they're a little bit deeper than they've been. They've always kind of struggled with numbers. Always have really good, talented skill position players especially. But this year they're better defensively, and they just have more depth on both sides of the ball. So I think they're going to beat West Lafayette, but I think that'll be the winner of that game. I think, we'll probably see Gibson Southern later in the semi-state. So, that'll be, a huge game tomorrow night. That may be the best game in the state or close to it. Tomorrow, Sam King will be there for us from Lafayette. But, that should be, really good game. 3 years ago, West Lafayette ended up winning that, and they went on to win state. So, it could be a potential state title bid on the line tomorrow night, which is crazy for mid-October.
Looking into 2A, there's a lot of excitement, Kyle, up here with Bishop Luers and Eastside, and they'll face off likely in the sectional final up here. But looking down toward the central part of the state, when you look at Cecina, Heritage Christian Speedway, are there any teams that you look at and say, potentially could represent that area in the state championship?
Yeah, actually, that's the game I'll be at is Heritage Christian Cecina tomorrow. So, I think out of those two teams, that could, again, be one of those teams, if they win that, could be playing at Lucas Oil. Heritage Christian really, good. They're better defensively than they've been. They always have good skill position guys. Cecina is more of a defensive team. They have a ton of sacks and tackles for loss, and they like the score to be down in the teens. So if they can, Heritage Christian beat them a few weeks ago. I think it was about week 5, 20-14. They led 20-0. And then Cecina started really locking in and slowing them down. And ever since then, they've played great defensively. So I'm really curious to see how that game goes. It'll be on the turf at Beach Grove, which, they have a new football stadium over there. Not stadium, but new field anyway. So it'll be played on the turf, which I think will probably help Heritage Christian some. But that'll be, talk about Brebeuf, West Lafayette, and 3A. That 2A game between Heritage Christian and Cecina will be, probably one of the best games in that class tomorrow night. But, again, I think the winner of that, potentially could go a long way. Speedway's kind of a surprise team this year, and I think they could win their sectional. I'm not sure if they can make it, beyond that or not, but they're another team, DJ McPherson, a really nice running back, linebacker type who, he's a very versatile player, and they'll be good again next year. Most of their guys are back again next year, so they're kind of building, not only for this year but for the future.
Kyle, I think the realists up here, like myself, we're foregoing hopes in the higher classes for state championships just because how powerful some teams are down there. We're putting all our hopes on 2A and 1A up here. Wanted to ask you about Indianapolis Lutheran because up here we keep talking about a potential Adams Central Indianapolis Lutheran state championship game in 1A. What can you tell us about Lutheran?
Yeah, it's a team that's been knocking on the door, and they're, really hungry, I think, to win a state title this year. They've been there, they've been to Lucas Oil, they've played in the semi-state several times under Dave Pash, the coach there. They've moved their best player, Monty Clay, is playing quarterback this year. His very explosive player. He's more of a runner than a passer, but he's also thrown for about 1,400 yards this year. So, he can do both. One of those guys that you just want to get the ball in his hands as much as possible. He's got a couple of good receivers he throws to. Again, they're always built around the offensive line. They're good there again. It'll be interesting to see how far they can go. To me, they're pretty clearly the best 1A team. We don't have a ton of 1A teams here, but I think they're the best 1A representative here. Park Tudor's a team that's on the rise. They play Sheridan tomorrow too. Should be a competitive game, but I think Lutheran's probably the best that we've got in 1A. But 1A and 2A seem to be more, like you said, you have some good team lures obviously up there in 2A as they were knocking on the door last year, and may have the best team around this year. So I'm not sure there's a better team than them in 2A, but 1A is always kind of a mystery because a lot of those teams it's hard to judge, how good they are until they play each other, that's kind of the fun part of the state finals is you don't have much of past history with those teams.
Definitely. Kyle, I'll hit you with this before we go. It's always a hot topic around this time of year and also boys sectional draw. I personally find it a bigger issue without seeding in basketball because you very well could have your two best teams playing it Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. At least everybody plays on Fridays and Saturdays during football. But you have some big matchups coming tomorrow in the central part of the state that are de facto sectional championship games. We have a couple, too, with Leo and East Noble, as well as Adams Central and Churubusco. Everybody talks seeding about this time of year. What have you heard down in Indy? Is it possible for the foreseeable future? And then are there hints if they do go that route at some point, exactly how they would do it?
Yeah, there's always, I talked to people on the IFCA, and they've brought up some different ideas that I've really liked in the past, but it hasn't really gone too far. It never has got to a vote or anything yet. So, I think the appetite for it to me is there. And I'm with you. I think basketball. I'd love to see. I'd even love to see the top two teams in the sectional get seeded. You kind of put them on the opposite sides, and they don't have to play each other that first night. In basketball especially, but football. Especially in 5A and 4A, it's just four teams anyway. So I don't see it's really that much of a big deal. But the IFCA had a really neat idea, I thought, a couple of years ago of, you put two sectionals together. It's basically 8 teams, and you seed the 8 teams, and you play. That way, that's not a huge distance of travel if you're shoving those two sectionals together. You're basically, that's kind of your regional, is those 8 teams together. And I like that idea. I thought that was a cool idea, but again, didn't make it very far, if anywhere. It was just kind of an idea. But I thought that was unique. But to me, you could still seed the top 2 teams. You could unveil the top 2 teams during the blind draw, and then you'll have your usual blind draw and do the show and everything. And that, to me, would at least you're playing for something during the season that way. And I think the IHSA I've heard in the past is like, well, how do you decide who the top 2 seeds are? And to me, it's just not that difficult. I think you could put together a committee and pretty easily decide who the top 2 are in each bracket. But I'm not real confident that'll ever happen or any seeding will happen in the near future. I think we'll have probably a shot clock before the seeding happens, which those are kind of the two hot button topics always. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't see, football, I wish they'd seed the top 2, but again, especially in the 4-team fields, it's really not a huge deal. I could see it more in the 18, the teams that we're seeing play this week would be, that would make more sense to me, because like I said, Cecina and Heritage Christian or Buff, West Lafayette, 2 of those 4 teams will be done. That doesn't seem real good if you've had a 8-1 or 9-0 season to go home that early, but that's just me. I know some people feel different, and a lot of people do like the idea. So I don't know. It's something that I'd like to see, but I'm not holding my breath about it.
All right, buddy. Hey, appreciate the time. Thanks a lot for the updates on everything going down there. Appreciate it, and I'm sure, hopefully, I'll run into you down at Lucas Oil this year.
Absolutely, I'll be there, and look forward to the next few weeks, and maybe we'll have some surprises.
Yeah, let's bring it. All right, buddy. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, thanks.
That was Kyle Neddenriep, the Indianapolis Star, joining us. One of the premier guys in the state for high school athletics, particularly around Central Indiana. And man, does he have tough decisions to make every single week on where he's going to go, because seemingly multiple games every week that are big time games in the area. That's going to do it for us. Thank you for joining us here on the High School Coaches Show. Thanks to Coach Paul Sade, Churubusco Eagles. Thank you to Brice Vance, KPC Media Group. And thank you to Mr. Neddenriep of the Indianapolis Star. Thanks, everybody, for listening. For John Graham, I am Justin Kenny. Until next week, this has been the High School Coaches Show on 1380 The Fan, 100.9 FM.
Thanks for listening to this exclusive presentation of 1380 The Fan, the high school coaches show with Justin Kenny on Fort Wayne Sports Station, 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Download the podcast at 1380thefan.com or wherever you get podcasts. Colin Cowherd at noon on 1380.
Podcasts by Federated Media.